On this episode of What's Going On with Shipping, all aboard the motor vessel Costco, a container ship bound for the West Coast. Hi, I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano, former merchant mariner, maritime historian, and an instructor in maritime history, maritime security, and maritime industry policy. So, news coming out today that Costco is joining the bandwagon of IKEA, of Walmart, of a whole batch of companies that have been chartering vessels to transport their goods, kind of bypassing the big container ship companies. And we're going to talk about that story in some detail right now. So here's the story on freight waves. Rent a ship, Costco hires vessels for urgent deliveries. Now, as I said before, we've seen this happening. The story goes to tell us that Issaquah, a Washington-based company, has chartered 3 small ocean vessels for a year and leased several thousand containers to move export merchandise from Asia to the U.S. and Canada. The vessels can carry 8 to 1,000 containers and will each make about 10 trips during the 1-year lease period. Their capacity is tiny compared to Costco's overall import volume, but reflects the extreme tightness of the container shipping market and delays that have more than doubled delivery times for importers, depending on the inland distribution system. I said before, these are destroying Home Depot, Walmart, and IKEA. And I've done stories on these. I did a story on All Aboard, the MV Home Depot edition, and I did a story about Welcome Aboard, the motor vessel Walmart. So we've already talked about this a lot. But what makes this story really interesting to me is for the first time, we're getting some details here on the types of vessels they're looking at chartering and what's going on. Now, the story goes into great detail, but what I want to cover in here is a couple of key points that are going on. First thing, the container ship backlog that we're seeing, this is not going away anytime soon. Go over here to G Captain, a story that was published today by Mike Schuller. Maersk says port congestion and supply chain bottlenecks to persist through year end. And they're probably going to go far beyond that too. I've seen discussions about this lasting until 2023. We're already in the Golden Week. We got Christmas, Chinese New Year coming up, which is times that China shuts down basically. And we see all of a sudden blank sailings of vessels reaching large proportions. Golden Week this year hits the first week in October, so we're going to see slowdowns coming out of China with that. And one of the things that Maersk is talking about already is the fact that we're seeing basically demand projected at 6 to 8% in 2021, reflecting strong first half as well as ongoing demand strength in the US and partly in Europe. So right now, we know demand is strong. We see that going on. We know out on the water that we're seeing basically backlogs all over. And we're seeing that shape up. And in the ports, we're seeing it. It's a great report by Mike Schuller, really goes in some details about it. I mentioned to you before the term blank sailing. This is a story out of Container News. The Alliance leads the blank sailing race. There are 3 large shipping alliances. Talk about them in a second. But basically what they're talking about is over the next 4 weeks, the alliance has announced 20 cancellations, followed by the 2 other alliances, 2M and the Ocean Alliance, with 14 and 6 cancellations. This is calling for about 80% of these blank sailings are occurring on the Asia, North America, and Asia, North Europe med runs. In other words, they're canceling the sailings. They're just not going to sail vessels. They're basically canceling the ship showing up on berth and delivering cargo. A lot of reasons for this. Well, one of the main reasons is they're so backed up. There's no reason to load the ships and just sail them out there if they're not going to move. And the other reason too is they're keeping prices at the level they're at. We've already seen stories coming out about prices starting to come down. There was a story the other week about Hop Hog and CMCGM setting their rates, locking in at their rates. There's concerns that rates may start to begin to decline a little bit. Carriers are locking in their rates, and we're seeing these. Now, I should mention that we do see blank sailings during this time of year. That is fairly routine. The question is whether or not these blank sailings should be taking place right now during this period. But let's come on back to the Costco story, because this is the story, again, that I kind of talked about here. I want to kind of lead you into here and discuss. So Costco leasing 3 ships, about 8 to 100 containers. So what type of vessels are we talking about here? Well, I want to show you. I don't know what type of vessels they are. I don't know where they're getting them from, but this is from a company called U.S. Ocean, a U.S. flagged carrier that operates ships that are designed for unique lifts. These vessels tend to be kind of heavy lift vessels. They can carry oversized cargo, but there's some unique features of these vessels. One of the first is they're not container carriers, but they have fittings on deck to lash containers down. They have their own cranes, which means they can load the cargo and offload the cargo. That's going to be very important because that may be a prospect. And what we expect to see is vessels similar to this being leased and chartered. They talked about the fact that these are 800 to 1,000 TEU vessels. Those are extremely small vessels. Give you an idea. This shows you what basically modern container ships look like. Right now, down at the very bottom end, those are the big ones we're talking about. Ships like Ever Given fall in this bottom category right down here. These vessels that are basically down here, what they call MGX 24s. Ships capable of, they're wider than 24 bays, can carry over 24,000 containers. You can see the size. Even the earliest container ships go back to the early 1950s. If you go back to 1956, the SSI Ideal X carried 58 containers, but very quickly they were designing container ships that can carry between 200 to 600 containers. So what we're talking about is basically modifying a vessel for a different mission and using it to carry containers. That's what Costco is looking to do. That's what they're aiming to get around. Now, most container ships, as you see right here, don't have cranes on board. In other words, they have to go into ports and offload. And that's what we see. So if you look right here, this is the port of LA and Long Beach. This is for marine traffic. If you come into the port of LA and Long Beach right here, zoom in here on you a little bit. On the left side here, you see LA. This is the LA side of the docks right here. This is all LA right here by Terminal Island. Here you can see vessels MSC Savonia in. You can see the President Roosevelt in, MSC Ariana, NY Key Daedalus right up there. Ever Leading, one of Ever Given ships are right there. YM Travel up here. Over on the Long Beach side, MSC Livorno, MSC Averini. The Nord Titan is off of the anchorage right there. Costco Oceana, and you can see vessels at the berths and working cargo. Out here is that big anchorage we keep talking about, the green or container ships. These are ships out in the anchorage, but if you zoom out even further, you'll see lots of green anchored out here, other vessels milling about. There's a lot of vessels in there. The ships that Costco are getting, these renter ships that Costco is getting, cannot go into LA and Long Beach because they can't get on those terminals. But since these ships will have their own cranes, they'll be able to go in terminals that are not busy or occupied. And that gives them actually some options right there where they want to go. 8 to 1,000 TEU vessels will be much smaller. They can go to ports not typically where we see these container ships in. So we're talking about Portland. We're talking about Oakland. We're talking about the Seattle, Tacoma area, Hueneme. There are different options where they can go. Now, they still have to make arrangements ashore for offload. They have to make arrangements for trucking. They have to make arrangements for all that. But these are one of the things we're seeing these carriers, these shippers get into, is ways to avoid the carriers who are basically locking them out with vessels in demand. Right now, we have massive anchorages off all the ports. We have vessels crossing. We have delays in China right now. These are ways to kind of keep the flow moving. And what you would expect to see coming on these Costco ships is high value, low density cargo. In other words, products that are small, tiny, but worth a lot. And that's one of the things they want to do. This is very unique because one of the things that this is going to do is challenge the big carriers out there, the big ocean carriers out there. For those of you who've watched this video a lot and have seen earlier videos about this, you'll have heard me say this before. One of the things that makes container shipping so unique is that the top 10 carriers control 85% of all the container shipping in the world. They are unique. They're in a dominant position. And not only are the top 10 in a dominant position, the top 9 are in 3 alliances. So if you see right here, Maersk and MSC, Maersk, which is Danish, MSC, which is Swiss, they're in the 2M alliance. That is the biggest alliance out there, the most ships with the most carrying capacity. They are powerful entities out there in the trade. Now, not all these ships are owned by Maersk. Not all these ships are owned by MSC. We did another video on that where we talked about that they lease a lot of vessels. But then you have the alliance. The alliance is made up of 4 firms. Hapag-Lloyd here, which is German. ONE, which is actually a compilation of Japanese shipping lines. ONE actually stands for the Ocean Network Express. HMM, which is South Korean, used to be the old Hyundai Merchant Marine. Now it's just HMM. And then Yangmin, which is a Taiwanese firm. And they make up the alliance. And then the last one out there is the Ocean Alliance. And this is really the second largest out here. That's made up by CMA CGM, which is a French firm. Costco Shipping, which is a Chinese firm, not Taiwan. This is mainland China. And then also Evergreen, which is a Taiwanese firm. Really interesting to see a mainland China, PRC, People's Republic of China, and a Republic of China, Taiwan company together. But those are the big alliances. And that's one of the issues we're seeing right now, is that these three alliances, those 9 companies, the 10th one, Zim, is Israeli, and they're kind of outside on the fringe, although they provide a substantial service. But the 9 top ones are the ones that really dominate the trade. Again, you come in here and you start looking at ships in here, and you start seeing them in here. You see Hyundai, you see Maersk, you see Ever is Evergreen in there. You'll see them in there all the time, and you'll notice them in here. Wanhai, which is another one of those firms. We see them out there. You can see them playing a major role. Maersk out here with the Evora. These companies really have a dominant control in the trade. And what companies like Costco, Home Depot, this is not the Home Depot ship, by the way. That's the Ever Given. I just put Home Depot on the side of it. So that's not what they're chartering. And Walmart are trying to do is get some priority cargo out there. They can book on the big carriers. The problem they have with booking on the big carriers is they're getting charged surcharges, and there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to get their cargo through. You got ships waiting off LA Long Beach right now for 3 weeks. Ships are crossing now. There's no guarantee that they're going to get that cargo off on time and then into a transportation system ashore in the United States that is packed to the gills and not clear they're going to get product onto the shelves when they need it by Black Thursday and during the Thanksgiving to Christmas holiday period. So shippers are taking methods into their own hands. Hence, we're going to see more stories like this probably coming in the near future. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the explanation. If not clear, please leave comments, leave questions. Happy to help. If you enjoyed this channel, please subscribe, hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos when they come out. Share it across social media. Give it a thumbs up, leave comments. Again, we appreciate you tuning in and hopefully explaining to you the principles and ideas behind ocean shipping and what is really going to be constraining us as we go forward over the rest of the year. So if you enjoy this, please subscribe. Go back, look at some other videos I've done in the past. I'll link some other videos, including the 2 on Home Depot vessel and Walmart, so that you can take a look at them. Until our next video, Sal signing off.